Welcome to another session with Fractional Exec. We've got a special guest today, Audrey Crane, who is joining myself, Neil McLeod, and Scott Mingus to talk a little bit about divergent thinking and her expertise. And it might be a great time for you to just give us a little background, Audrey. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Briefly, I'll say in college, I really wanted to study theater, and my mother did me the great favor of saying, "Fine, but you have to get a double major in something else." And so I picked up a pure mathematics. Pure mathematics is almost as useless as theater or as useful, depending on your perspective. But with that background and also the fact that my father was into computer science, so we had a Radio Shack TRS-80 in our house. We certainly had Apple IIs. My dad was invited to help write software for that would ship with the Mac and things like that. And so I'm the oldest digital native, I think, in on the planet. So I did QA for my summer jobs instead of waiting tables, like spreadsheet software and stuff like that. So anyway, I graduated. I was poor for a couple years, and I decided to move to Silicon Valley, honestly, just to get like a day job that paid. Because if you're acting at night, you can't wait tables, which is when you get the big tips. So I was so lucky to end up in Silicon Valley in the mid 90s, working for a company that made CD-ROMs and later actually got acquired by AOL. And anyway, I left, and again, super lucky. I had a friend at Netscape in like 95, and my resume landed in front of Hugh Dubberly, who had ran Apple Creative Services. He had come out of Yale and RISD, and he was like, math and theater, that's weird. I'd like to meet this person. And so I got to work at Netscape. I ran the net search page as a producer when it was the highest traffic page on the internet. And the first advertising program selling ads like on the fish cam. What a crazy, amazing, wonderful experience. Like meetings with Elon Musk when he was trying to get better placement for his Yellow Pages company on the net search page. And it was great. So anyway, from there I've been inside of companies and outside of companies as a design practitioner and eventually design leader, consultant, thought partner, and wrote a book called What CEOs Need to Know About Design because I'm very passionate about like design as a way to make the world a better place. So fonts and colors are important. That certainly is part of what we do, but deep understanding of what people are trying to accomplish and how software can help them accomplish it is what I want to do. So now I'm a partner at Design Map. We're San Francisco based B2B design company, but I also do stuff on my own, including with you guys, and I'm based here in Omaha now.
Very nice. Awesome. Well, that's a cool background.
So much luck involved. And but now I'm like, oh yeah, that meeting where Ben Horowitz had that document that he drafted called Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager. Like I was in the room for that. There were like 20 people. So it's just so much luck. I feel really fortunate to have
Yeah.
happen to end up that way.
Well, cool. Like you and I met a few years ago, and we've kept in touch, and we're also in the Omaha area, so we have that kind of same similar crossover networks. And one of the conversations we had was research you were doing around divergent thinking. So I didn't have any idea what you were talking about when you brought it up, and then you had briefly explained it to me, and I was like, "Oh, cool. Let's have a discussion about that." You wrote an article that we shared on the Fractional Exec socials, but this is the first chance we've had to really kind of dive in on a recorded session. And you've done a few meetings where you've sat on panels and talked a little bit about it, quick hits, 5 to 7 minute type things. But we might go a little long form here today. So go ahead and tell us what it means. What is divergent thinking?
Yeah. Basically, at its essence, it's leveraging our own experience and training in an appropriate manner to develop multiple ideas in pursuit of a goal. So there's lots of ways this goes wrong. Right? The example that I use, the reason that I got really interested in this particular kind of like tiny part of the larger thing that we could consider design thinking. A client, a big client, came to us and said, we are concerned that what's coming out of our design and product teams and engineering, like our product teams writ large, isn't as good as it could be. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is there's a lot of time pressure. It's not an easy time to be in business right now. Two is we have an extremely robust design system. And so between those two things are getting done. They're getting done on time, but are they the best solution? Are they the best solution for the problem that we're trying to address for our customers, whether it's B2B or B2C? So we want something that doesn't take a long time, but we want to go deep on just taking a second to think about what are all the ways that we might solve this problem before we just like plug something, and obviously, especially with AI, before we just like plug in a prompt, take the first thing out, maybe like iterate so we get like a really incremental effect, and then we ship that thing. And again, did it meet the goal? Yeah. Is it differentiated? I mean, by definition, it's not because we just like plug something into AI and then iterate it a little bit, right? So divergent thinking is a lot of ideas um, for one problem, and it's an opportunity to just take a minute and differentiate in a world where we have AI. There's lots of time pressure, and um, especially with established design systems, it doesn't take much thought to get something out.
So tell me what it really means in lay terms. What methodology is deployed to leverage divergent thinking?
Yeah, so the paperclip test is such a fun little thing to try. The paperclip test was invented in the 60s for NASA. So NASA brought some scientists in and they said, look, we've got a lot of smart people here, but we need to measure creativity. Like we want to know which one of these folks is most likely to kind of think outside of the box and come up with a really net new way of doing things. And so these psychologists were like, well, there's lots of ways, but what they settled on was actually saying to people like, take a paper clip. I wish I had one in my drawer. I do. Take a paper clip and tell me with unlimited time, like all the ways that you could think of to use this paper clip. And the people who had came up with the most ways were kind of by definition, right? Like the most creative outside of the box thinkers. And these scientists were like, well, this is an interesting study. I wonder what happens if we take this and we give this same test to kids who we think of as like, creative, imaginative people. So they took the paperclip test to 5-year olds and they said, they asked the same question, and their definition was you're a genius level creative thinker if you could come up with 200 or more uses for a paperclip. And with kindergartners, 5-year olds, 98% of them achieved genius level, could come up with 200 or more. And then they did a longitudinal study. So, same question with 10-year olds, same question with 15-year olds. And by the time they got to adults, you can kind of imagine how that went. Only 2% of adults qualify as genius level with this test, which is astonishing, I think, and a little bit horrifying. And George Land has a great little TED talk about this that I highly recommend. But one of the things that he suggests is it's not that we aren't creative people and actually like creativity is critical for our survival. It's just that it kind of gets trained out of us in school. So we learn that there's one right answer, that it's in the back of the book, and that's kind of all there is. So if you take this paperclip test and this like tendency for people to um, have fewer and fewer ideas, and then you put it in a world of AI where you can just plug your first thing in, it's got some like pretty profound implications. And by the way, with the paperclip test, like I've given a talk about divergent thinking a couple of times, and if I have time, I ask people to just take 5 minutes and come. And often there are designer creatives, in the room. And I've never had anybody with 5 minutes come up with more than 15 ideas.